Good morning, welcome back. This is Daybreak and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak, the SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We will sample your feedback in the course of this broadcast and thank you for staying with us. With me in studio on my immediate right is Hussein Khalid. He is the Executive Director, Haki Africa here in Kenya. Also joined us this morning is Dina Agai, who is women rights activist. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for your time. And also Kawive Wambua, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Inuka Trust here in the country. Deputy CEO, yes. Inuka Trust here in the country. Your time is all appreciated, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a look at the civil society report and your voices they are in 1 year into the current administration of President William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza administration. And we begin on that note, Hussein, coming to you first. And this was a joint statement issued by the civil society in the country that was on 13th of last month, September, just a year exactly when President William Ruto marked 1 year in office. And you said in that statement, which was a conglomerate of civil society, we are possibly witnessing one of the most challenging precedents in our history. You touched on the areas of police brutality, education system in the country, which you said is in chaos, the high cost of living, and sustained borrowing. I mean, what then is your account generally of the remaining 4 years, if in under 365 years, this is your report card on this administration?
Thank you very much. And this is an important discussion. And I want to thank Citizen TV for bringing these issues up so that we can have candid deliberation as Kenyans on how our government is doing. Good question. If this is 1 year down the line, what do we expect for the next 4 years? And I think in this 1 year alone, we've seen a 180 degrees turn from the promises that were made, not by the president alone, but the Kenya Kwanza regime. And we are very, very, very disturbed by what we are witnessing. This is the same regime that guaranteed us of constitutionalism and rule of law. We've seen them reneging on that promise. We've seen an about turn on what they promised we will have. They promised us an end to extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances. As human rights organizations, we are now recording alarmingly high numbers. Killings alone from the protests, the demonstrations, over 40 that have been documented across the country. And worse is that this same government that has been leading the police in these exercises during the protests has refused to even acknowledge that such killings took place. You know, if you look at the status of our economy, the high cost of living has skyrocketed. We have never, ever been in this situation as a country. Kenyans from every corner are complaining. Kenyans have to make do with very little earnings, and they have to suffer the indignity of spending sleepless nights, for men not being able to put food on the table at the end of the day. We are seeing increased stress levels. Mental health issues have become, the order of the day. So we are very, very disturbed by what we are seeing presently, and we can only, wonder what will happen 4 years on.
But even as you mentioned that, I just want to get back to the roadmap campaign of the head of state when he was the presidential candidate for the UDA party. And you look at that roadmap, and he presented himself as an outsider candidate, even opposed the Building Bridges initiative, which the civil society largely opposed, and the courts had thrashed the move to change the constitution. And he also casted himself as a defender of the civil society's independent role, not only here domestically, but also even abroad. What then, in your view, might have changed?
I think, as they say, politicians can never be trusted. Unfortunately, this is becoming a habit in Kenya, where you can come forward during elections, make grand promises, agree to demands by the people, and then once you're in office, you completely ignore what you as an individual or even as a party had guaranteed the people. And this is exactly what we are seeing. We were informed that this will be a hustler government, a government that will take into account the demands, the wishes, and the aspirations of the people. But what we are seeing is a total ignorance. Okay. They don't even seem to understand what the people want. And for this kind of situation to play itself out in our country,
all right,
is something that we have to question ourselves. How is it that we have a government in office that completely disregards the courts, completely disregards people's views? If you look at the finance bill, for example, and they arrogantly stood up and said, look, we are waiting to see who is going to oppose this. And they went ahead and did what they did.
Okay.
Now we're having Haiti.
All right. We will talk more about that and the general question about constitutionalism needed and the drive towards the implementation of Katiba 2010. Dina Agai, coming to you. In 1 year, what's your view of the current administration's relationship with the civil society in Kenya?
Thank you very much. I just want to say that I am an optimist and I don't want to be so pessimistic. Indeed, this government has just had its first year, and I think it would be unfair to judge a government that has a 5-year life in 1 year. It would be very unfair, especially given the fact that this government came into power after the COVID issues. We also had the fuel issues with the Russian and Ukraine war. And of course, back home, the past administration also did some not very good things as far as our nation is concerned, in terms of even money, spending of money and all that. And so, for me, I do not want to judge it harshly, because for me, I feel that it is putting measures in place to make things better. And that way, we can only be hopeful that things are going to get better. Of course, over the 1 year, we've had some misses. Okay. We cannot say they've been perfect. But over and above, I think that they are on the right track, and the president really is trying to amend the things that were done that were not right. And I think Kenyans must find it in their heart to cut this government some slack based on the things that I've spoken about. But I also want to say that times are hard for people. It is obvious. Kenyans are struggling. And let's not say it's only Kenyans. Yeah. The whole globe, people are struggling. In America, in Europe, people are struggling. The only thing that I would urge the government to do is to be able to be effective in communicating what they're doing in a way that Kenyans understand, and making sure that they are continuously creating awareness on what they are doing. Because if they don't do that, then propaganda is going to take the day. And most of the time, people are running on issues that they are not clearly understanding what is happening behind the scenes and blaming government. So for me, I feel that the president is really trying to do what is right by us as a people.
Okay, and we'll expound much more about the mishmash that generally clouds over any government, getting back to the Kenyatta administration, how it literally shrinked the civic society space in the country, failing to operationalize the act that President Kibaki the late had signed before leaving office in early 2013, and how we can better our democracy and the march towards constitutionalism, the rule of law, and good governance. Kiwavi, coming to you, what's your view? What perspectives, with which perspectives are you viewing the past 1 year, and how is it generally, the relationship? Is it cordial between the civil society and the current administration?
I think we can start from the end and say, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, a principal secretary said that the civil society must align itself to government work. You know, if you just look at that statement, and we are talking about relationships here, then the obvious thing you'll find is that this is a government that is hell-bent on railroading everyone. You follow this path, or if you don't follow it, then we will remove the railroad. I think that's the kind of feeling that you get. The background of the promises that this government made, and our interpretation of the same in the 1 year, is that the government is propagating a false narrative. Number one,
in what sense is it propagating a false narrative? The
false narrative that what they promised and what they are delivering are totally different things. So, and like what Dina said here, I think that what Kenyans anticipated, and I can say at the time of elections, I made a few comments here and there that let us go back to history and say, where do these leaders come from? What is it that they have done in the past, which they are promising to bring in future? When you have a government that, when police, are brutal to people who are protesting about food, the March for Our Lives, people were brutalized and arrested, and the president congratulated them. Then you know that when we're talking about freedom of expression, the right to assembly, the right to have a conscience has been taken away. So that is the kind of thing that I am seeing, that you promise something, and I think the other thing could be that the government is over-promising. You know, the other day, Ruto said that in 10 years there will be no Kibera. I mean, you know, when you hear such things, you're like, well, it is possible, fine. But Kibera has existed from 1963, and the structural, fundamental issues that have made Kibera and all slums exist: lack of employment, lack of regulated land tenure system, the lack of the whole issue of squatters and all that. Because the Nubians who started Kibera in the 20s, were literally just dumped there and taught, go and sit here. And there is no system. That, and almost 100 years of non-planning, it's a huge thing that if you want to do in 10 years, then either you are a magician, or you are over-promising. You're saying that things that you have not really thought through. And you see the Kenya at this point needs not just hope, but practical things that work. When you say that you're going to lower the cost of living, don't make it a story. Just do it. Yeah. When you say when you get into government, like when they got into government for the last 1 year, I can tell you for a fact that every day you see them on political rallies, they are talking about wale wa jamaa, what these other people did, and you're like, okay, are we stuck at campaigns? When we need to stop demonizing the past and say, the past is behind us, now we have a country, can we run the country? That's the kind of narrative that will save us as a nation. Okay,
Mr. Wambua, you pointed out the degree of responsibility the government bears, and talking about the loss of lives, which is unfortunate, in the opposition called for protests which started in March this year. But yes, it's the government that bears the responsibility for Kenyans who have been killed by police, as stated by IPOA, which appeared before the National Dialogue Committee, saying more than 50 Kenyans were killed. But who bears the responsibility of the people who as well have looted businesses, destroyed property, including one of the key infrastructure projects in the capital city, the expressway, businesses across the country looted, shops and supermarkets? Who bears that responsibility? Yes, the government bears the loss of life. It has to answer and provide answers to the Kenyan people. But on the other end, on the flip end, where does responsibility lie?
You know, the one thing that you cannot compare is destruction of property and loss of life. If you destroy property, you should be arrested. There is a mechanism. Police have got the power to arrest and say, you broke this railing. They arrest you and they take, but you can't break a railing and then I come and shoot you. You see, we can't compare. We can't compare the two. So, in protest, number one, there's a right to protest. Okay. There's a right to demand for accountability. There's a right for people to peacefully embark on, demonstrations and all that. But when these people break the law and destroy property. The police have got a mechanism of identifying the person responsible, arresting them, and putting them to task to pay for the damages.
Okay.
That is not the same as killing them. You cannot, because you break a law, I come and kill you because you are lawless. No. Human life is bigger, is greater than property. And we say that, actually, the day that, ironically, when people are demonstrating and there is no interference from police, nobody loses their life. And usually there is no destruction of property. It is the element of policing demonstrations and basically attacking demonstrators that has brought this violence. That's from where I sit.
All right.
Yeah.
And Khalid and Dina, when we get back from the break, and of course Mr. Wambua, we'll expound this because there are a lot of issues that are of concern to the Kenyan people. Yes, there is government, responsibility lies somewhere, and there are of course different roles that different actors play in the march towards a stronger Kenya and democracy in terms of its economic and political prosperity. Keep your comments coming here on the broadcast. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. More after the break here on Daybreak. Stay tuned.